Today I want to build a house,
But not just a normal boring house.
I want to use as much color as I possibly can, because that's one thing that I often find myself doing, and that is that I don't mix enough with the colors. So today we're gonna do something about that. Let's start building. And I started out by making a wall out of deep slate with a big window, and I have to admit I had no idea how I wanted this to look. I only knew that I wanted to use a lot of color, and that's it. But one thing that I thought could be cool was making a gradient copper tower. And here is the gradient palette that I used. And if you look closely in the middle, you see that I mixed in some mossy stone bricks. And the reason why I did that is that it has a very similar texture to cut copper. So I used that, and I also used some stripped jungle and acacia wood. And after I was done with the texturing, it was time to add some windows, which I think ended up really cool. The red crimson contrasts the copper so good. And the white glass too looks
Nice.
Then it was time for the roof, and I made it like a typical tower roof with a spire. But in most of the reference pictures that I found, the spires were usually either blue or orange. But since that is the same color as the copper, I went with brown instead. And the spire looks so cool. It has kind of a natural vibe because I used mud and dirt, and I think it really fit the tower. But now it is time for the other side of the building, and I have to admit, I was really scared. I got so happy with the tower, so I was scared of ruining it. And this happens to me quite a lot when I do creative stuff, so I decided to go on a small inspiration break where I just looked at some other people's builds. And that is probably my biggest tips if you want to get better at building, because seeing what other people have built and how they think can be so inspiring and helpful. And there are so many amazing builders out there, so I went and looked at some of their builds. And it definitely gave me that inspiration boost that I needed. And I was ready to take on the rest of the build. But I still started with the easy stuff like the door and the foundation of the tower. Then I began working on a roof out of mangrove stairs. But I didn't really know where to place them because I wasn't sure how the rest of the house was gonna look. And I began making a wall out of probably the most hated block in Minecraft history, diorite. But to be honest, my opinion is completely opposite. I really like diorite. I think it's a great block. And it might look a little bit like bird poop, but it's still a great building block. And I want to use a lot of it. So I made another section on top and I added 2 windows. And if you watched my last video, you know that I love arches. So of course I had to add some here too. Then I had to give the wall some more texture because just diorite isn't gonna do it. And to help me with the gradients, I watched a lot of Bida Below 100 videos, because he's just so good at building. And the finished result just looks amazing. But now it is time for the other side of the house, and it's basically just the same here. A wall with some gradients and just a random structure that I placed to have something there. Then we had to do the back, and I think everyone can agree that the back side of buildings are the most boring part of the entire build. It's just a boring version of the front, but it has to be done, so you know, let's just get done with it. And I kinda struggled with connecting everything together because there are many separate elements, and it took a while to get the back to make sense, but it made sense at the end. And now we're done with the exterior, and we're 1/3 finished. Now for the second part, I dug out a huge plot around the house, and I filled it with grass. Then I for some reason started making the interior, but for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna cut to when I made the nature outside. And I began by placing some bushes around the house, then some trees, then some bone meal. And look at this beautiful pathway that I made. But now it is time for the controversial tree. And it's basically just that I placed a tree here. And the reason why it's controversial is that it blocks the view a little bit. And I did decide on keeping it, but I'm wondering what you guys think. Should I keep it? Comment down below. But now we're done with the surroundings and we're 2/3 done. And it's time to do the interior. And because making a time-lapse of interior is the most painful thing that exists, I'm instead just gonna show you guys how it ended up. And we're starting just outside here, and I have to give you guys a little bit of a warning. Because making builds like this with a lot of separate elements, colors, blocks, you name it, it looks really good on the outside, but on the inside it becomes really messy, so I did my best. And when you come in, the first thing you see is the main room in the middle. And the walls and the roof look a little bit strange, but if you try to look past that, the room doesn't look that bad. I made like a workbench here, a storage shelf on top, and a big nice carpet on the floor. Then if you go left in here, we get to the stable or the garage or whatever you want to call it. And since this room kind of looked like a stable, I decided to put a horse here. And this might be my favorite room in the entire house. And I don't even know why. I think it's because of the arches and the surroundings, and it all just fits so good together. But we can't spend too much time in each room, so let's get going. And if we go back into the house and up this platform, we get to the tower. And this is kind of like a working room. We got some potions, books, mushrooms. And if this was a survival world, this is probably where I would have my crafting table. And all the other crafting stuff. Then if we go up this ladder, we get to the 2nd floor. And this is kind of like a plant room. And you know what I said about the garage room being my favorite? Well, I take it all back. This is by far the best room in the house. It's just something about the plants and the copper that just fits so well together. And the room being so tall also gives it a really cool vibe. Easily the best room in the house. And if that is the best room in the house, then this room is probably the worst. And if we go up this ladder, we get to the attic, and this is kind of like a storage room. And I just filled it with a lot of chests and barrels, and I probably could have done a little bit more here, but I didn't. But it's still an okay room. Then if we go down here again and up this ladder, we get to the bedroom. And in this room I struggle a lot. It was really hard to try to squeeze in a good bed here, because of the small space. But I still think that I did a good job considering how small the room was. And that is the last room of the house. And to sum it all up, I really like this build, especially the outside. The interior is like, it's okay. It could have been a little bit better, but overall, I think it's good. And if you enjoyed this video, then I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to like and subscribe, because it puts a big smile on my face. And also, comment what you want me to build next. And now the only thing left to say is... bye!